So joining us now to talk about it, Democratic Congressman Adam Smith of Washington, of course, the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. So great to see you. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. Of course, this news is very important and there is a lot at stake. Do you plan on voting yes for this War Powers resolution? And why are you making that decision if so?
I do, and your reporting is correct. The odds of this actually passing are pretty close to zero. It may pass, but the president has the ability to veto it. We'd have to have 2/3 vote. But what I really want is I want the House and the Senate to vote directly on this war. This is beyond any shadow of a doubt a war which the Constitution says Congress is supposed to approve. It's the most momentous thing we can do as a country. We are elected representatives of that country. We should be on record, but one way or the other, whether or not you support this war.
Secretary of State and, of course, the National Security Advisor Marco Rubio broke down the administration's many hats, as we know. He broke down the administration's objectives in Iran today again. Take a listen.
Iran is run by lunatics, religious fanatic lunatics. They have an ambition to have nuclear weapons. They intend to develop those nuclear weapons behind a program of missiles and drones and terrorism that the world will not be able to touch them for fear of those things. And this is the weakest they've ever been. Now is the time to go after them. The president made the decision to go after them, take away their missiles, take away their navy, take away their drones, take away their ability to make those things so that they can never have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president made this decision. It was the right decision. And the world will be a safer place when these radical clerics no longer have access to these weapons.
So I understand you want Congress on record to take this War Powers vote, but do you agree with the objectives that the President and the Secretary of State have laid out for this war?
I agree with the objectives. I don't agree that the war was the way to achieve them. And that right there was a focus on the nuclear program. We were told 9 months ago that their nuclear program was obliterated, was gone completely. Some of us argued about that at the time, but they said, no, it's gone. And now we've seen no evidence of where it's at. There is no way on earth that was an imminent threat that called for us to engage in this level of war that's already seen 6 dead Americans, countless, conflict has spread throughout the Middle East. All kinds of problems are created by this for a nuclear program that the administration has told us is miles away from being achieved. So no, I don't accept that stopping their nuclear program required this level of military action.
Can you give me a definition of imminent? Because we've heard Democrats using this term a lot to push back on the administration. Yeah. But to be fair, the administration has said they refused to negotiate. They offered them nuclear fuel for life for free. They said no.
I can answer the question.
But let me just give a little more background. And they offered that, and the Iranians said absolutely not. They had talks after the bombings of the nuclear sites. They refused to negotiate in good faith. And they've also tried to assassinate the president. So what does it mean, imminent threat? Do we have to wait until they're screwing a warhead onto a ballistic missile before we actually take it seriously? Or are we allowed to have an offensive war at this point?
Yeah. Imminent means soon, okay? Weeks, days, months. And I want you to understand, yes, Iran had, first of all, they clearly have a ballistic missiles program that they were reconstituting. Again, nobody knows and no one has said where they were at on a nuclear weapons program that had been obliterated 9 months ago. So there is no evidence whatsoever that they were anywhere close to having a nuclear weapon. And to answer your question specifically, within months or even years, there's no evidence that they even made a decision that they were actually going to build a nuclear weapon. But again, this moving all over the place, okay, all right, well, they had a nuclear weapon. Well, that wasn't imminent.
They didn't have one, thank God.
Yeah, well, of course.
Are you opposed to the regime getting a nuclear weapon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So how do you, given the amount of talks over the last 30 years about this program, including for Democrats like Hillary Clinton threatening to bomb the regime?
I've heard your arguments. I want to make a couple of mine.
Go ahead.
So we had an agreement.
How do you propose this we handle differently? Go ahead.
We good? Okay. 2015, we had an agreement to stop them from building a nuclear weapon. And they took down all of that enrichment, all that stuff down way below where it had ever been. We tore up that agreement. And then they moved up to 60%. And then we blew that up. Okay, I propose that we at least wait until we get a little further down the road before we launch a war in the Middle East that is now involving, 14 different countries? Hezbollah and Israel are back at war. They're taking shots at oil. They're taking shots at infrastructure all over the place. So they were not eating how do I know it wasn't imminent? Because President Trump told us it wasn't imminent.
What do you make of the Saudis and the Qataris and the UAE fighting back against Iran because Iran is attacking not just Israel and the United States, but now their neighbors?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think they have much of a choice. But again, that's another thing that happened in this war. And President Trump himself said he was surprised by that. When we attacked Iran, he was surprised that Iran attacked all of those Gulf states. He shouldn't have been surprised. And now those Gulf states have been dragged into war. This is the largest war we've seen in the Middle East since 1967. So imminent means a heck of a lot more imminent than it was to launch this type of war with this much unpredictability behind it.
You mentioned the JCPOA. That was a deal that did not address the ballistic missile program.
Correct.
As Secretary Rubio talked about today.
We were talking about nukes when you raised that. That's the whole thing.
Let me just make this point, and then I'll let you respond. So Rubio has made this point also in 2015 while the deal was being negotiated. He made this point today. And yesterday, when he was on Capitol Hill, he said the ballistic missile program is the program that protects their nuclear ambitions. So if they have thousands of missiles they can use, it protects the program from ever being obliterated.
It protects their regime.
And it protects them from building a nuclear program. So what do you say about the idea of taking out ballistic missiles so they can't protect building a bomb?
First of all, the nuclear program has existed for 20 years, okay? And they haven't yet crossed that line to building it. Now, that's a threat, and we absolutely need to deal with that threat.
How?
The ballistic missile program is, well, how is, right now, they're not going towards it, so let's not start a war with 14 different countries as to stop something that had supposedly already been stopped 9 months ago. But you asked about the ballistic missile program. The ballistic missiles are a huge problem, but they weren't going to attack. There was no evidence whatsoever. They were building up those missiles to be in a position to do that. Is it really your position that the only way to deal with a country that has weapons programs is to go to war?
No,
that's
sir.
it? That's
no,
all we've
sir.
got on the
I'd
table?
love to have you back to talk about that.
Yeah.
But the idea that Iran has not been using their missiles is ridiculous, especially given all the proxy groups that they've armed, including Hezbollah and Hamas in the region, not to mention South America.
That's the third problem that we haven't talked about yet, which is their support for proxy forces and terrorism. Absolutely. But they actually haven't, except in response to attacks, been using their ballistic missile program.
So you're saying Iran is a victim, not the aggressor, in using
the
missile program?
Why do you put words in my mouth that I very clearly didn't say? Absolutely not. Iran has destabilized the region across the board. Is a full-scale Middle East war the best way to address that? That drags in all those
countries. Well, it seems like talking hasn't really worked over the last 30 years.
Well, it has stopped.
And Democrats and Republicans have also said they can't have a nuke.
Yeah, and they don't, and haven't.
They're well on their way.
So a full-scale Middle East war also
where everyone's alliance against Iran.
Okay, but where everyone's got missiles, lobbing into their hotels and their oil infrastructure and their civilian, right?
Which they've done forever.
No, they haven't done that forever.
Yes, they have.
They've been they've been shooting missiles. They've been shooting missiles at Saudi Arabia forever.
Yes, they have. They've been targeting
forever.
The Houthis have been targeting civilian airports in Saudi.
Different thing.
They've targeted a number of civilian airports in the UAE. This is absolutely happening. We have to go, but I'd love to have you back to talk for this because obviously it's not going away. We'll watch and see how.
Yeah, the war is going to be around for a long time.
Yes, it will. Congressman Adam Smith, thank you very much. Great to see you.
Appreciate it.